Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Black on Black Education podcast. My name is Eva Lauren Jean Charles. I am co-founder and CEO of Black on Black Education. I am an educator, I'm a leader, and I am extraordinarily excited to be back for another episode of this podcast. So if you've been here for a long time, you have heard over or almost 100 interviews that we've done on this podcast. My co-founder, my father, Jamal Thomas, used to co-host the podcast with me. It was a beautiful and incredible time. And it feels crazy to know that it's been maybe a year and a half since we did an episode like that, where we brought on a Black educator or someone working in the education space that could really talk about the needs of Black students. We have since transitioned into another space. My dad is out there doing amazing things, talking about the real importance of putting AI into education. So check him out. But I am over here now, fully committed to coming back and being on the podcast a lot more often. Now, am I going to promise weekly right now? I'm not going to do that. But I am going to have short and long episodes where we can really talk about student-centered practice and student voice, because that's what Black on Black education is all about. So because it has been such a long time since I sat in front of this mic, since I had the opportunity to really take the time and the energy and the effort, and I had the motivation and excitement to just be a part and have a chat and have a conversation with you all, I just want to bring in the new people who might not have been here for the old episodes. If you haven't, please go back and check a bunch of them out. They are absolutely incredible. I have a goal of going through all of the old episodes and doing a few kind of recaps and listening to it now and seeing like, ooh, what are the new perspectives, thoughts, ideas that I can use in this current context. So I'm excited about that, how we can extrapolate and really be intentional about thinking about some of those things. We weren't really focused on student-centered practice then. We were really just focused holistically on how to serve and work with Black and brown students. And so I'm sure, though, there are just so many little beautiful tidbits with all of the interviews, with all the incredible people we got to speak to. And I want the opportunity to go back, listen to them, cringe a little bit listening to my voice when I first started the podcast, and bring them back with like new insights and new ideas. So that's another thing that y'all will see coming very, very soon. But let's get into today's episode. If you have been with us for a long time, again, I'm going to say that a few times this episode, then you know a lot about our story. You know a lot about why Black on Black education was developed and created. And if you want a really deep kind of origin story of Black on Black education, please go to our YouTube or our website, www.blackonblackeducation.com, or Black on Black Education on YouTube, and watch the full-length documentary. It's about 35 minutes, and it talks about how my father and I met, where and why we started Black on Black education, what the goal of the organization is, and some of the work that we do. It's been really, really cool to watch that back so many times since we built and developed it. And it really is the baby of 2023. Like, that was the big thing that I accomplished and built and put together, and then was able to put out into the world earlier this year, which was really exciting. But it's still been wobbly coming back into this space. It's still been wobbly thinking about how to be an educator, how to be a wife, how to be a teacher, how to be a sister, and also have enough left over to pour in to Black on Black education, and being able to figure out how I can best support schools. So, burnout is a real thing. Educators, we go through it when we're just in the classroom. We go through it because the jobs that we have is hard, and we are having to take care of ourselves emotionally, physically, to kind of handle the work that is servicing the students that we serve. And so I definitely feel excited about the energy that I have in the summer, and how much I really want to see the work that I know that I can do really flourish. And it's going to happen. And so we'll start with the end in mind, that we have published a guided journal. Oh my God, it feels crazy to be saying that. But 4 years later, this is an idea that started in 2020 during the pandemic. 4 years later, the I'm just a teacher and I'm just a student, what can I do guided journal set is done. It is out, and it is available for you all to dig into. If you are a teacher and you want to spend, and you have an extra $12.99 in your bank account, you want to go and add it to your cart like you add all the other things to the cart. It is a reflection journal, guided journal, prompts that are different across the entire journal. It is not one of those journals that every day asks you, like, how do I be a good teacher today, and reflect on your journey as a teacher today. You have a different question every single day. We've got some quizzes about what kind of learner we are. We have information about how we're taking care of ourselves, thinking about privilege and how and what ways we have privilege over others versus the ways that we might, and in ways that we might not have thought of as privilege. So I think that it's an incredible tool for any educator that's committed to student-centered practice, culturally responsive practice, a part of all of those things, trauma-informed. Like, we can't be doing any of those things if we're not reflecting on our own experience in education and we're not interacting and engaging with our emotions as it relates to education. You're a teacher. What can you do? A whole heck of a lot. And so this journal helps you process out and think about those, to just think about that. So I'm so excited for each of you to get that book into your hands. And if you feel so inclined, push your schools to get on Amazon and order some of these books as well, because we also have a student version. So one where it's hand to hand. I've gone through to make sure the questions are aligned. If you are taking a self-care survey, the students are taking a self-care survey. And so if you need something to get some kids writing, right? Students' writing stamina might not be where it needs to be. Okay, cool. Let's pull this out. Let's take 15 minutes. If having discussions is difficult for you, or you just don't really know how to have those rich conversations that has nothing to do with your content area, which we all know that we should be doing in the classroom with our kids. If that is an issue for you, or it's not an issue, you just want extra tools, boom, you've got a journal, $12.99 a piece. Grab one, grab 50, and do the things for your students, right? So we want to make sure that our kids are going through that same reflective process. They're thinking about how they interact and engage with education. They're thinking about the ways that they can grow in their practice as a student, but also as an educator, right? Because the free flowing of ideas in a student-centered classroom allows students to feel like they are also teachers as well as learners, and the teacher feeling the same way. So all of the work that Black on Black education has done over the course of the last 4 years have been all over the place, and not all over the place in like a, okay, we don't know what we're doing type of way, but because there are so many ways that we've wanted to serve. And in this moment, I just find it so important for us to be having a deep conversation as schools, as teachers on the individual level, and as a system at large about how we are bringing students into the conversation about revolutionizing education. I'm going to continue to use the word revolutionary. I know that there are powers that be that don't think the word revolution is an appropriate use in the education system, or honestly in any social discourse. But revolutions are when power is shifted, right? And I'm thinking about the revolution in education really needing to be a shift for our kids. Our kids need to see a shift for their thoughts, their opinions, the way that they learn, to be at the forefront of the way that policies and practices are developed. And right now, I just don't see that, right? We come in early for PD. We sit down, we have conversations. What do you think the policy should be? What do you think? And it's a bunch of adults who oftentimes are going to choose or decide the policies and practices that make their jobs easier, which no one's asking you to have a hard job. I'm not saying that to be a student-centered educator, it must be so painstakingly difficult to be a teacher. No, that's not the point. The point of what I'm trying to say is I would love for students and teachers to identify and be able to have rich and deep conversations with one another that help show that there is such a parallel between their experience in education and the student's experience in education. And thinking of the ways, big and small, small to start, big is the hope, right? We don't want to be thinking small. We want to be thinking big. And so if we want to be thinking big, we have to start by thinking small. And what are the small ways in your individual classroom? These are reflection prompts and reflection questions that are in that journal, but also just for you to reflect listening to this right now. What are the ways in your classroom? What are the ways in your school? What are the small ways? When was the last time your school did a focus group? If we can't answer that question, then maybe we aren't thinking deeply about how we're bringing in the students' voices. And Black on Black education has multiple ways that we can support you in allowing students to have a much bigger voice in your school. That's called the Student Action Board. Please reach out, eva@blackonblackeducation.com, if you are interested in bringing a Student Action Board to your school. But if your school is not ready for that yet, I know that it takes time. I know that it takes energy to get there. If your school's not ready for that, that's cool, right? But nothing isn't an option, because right now what we're doing in many spaces is not working. We have young people that are disengaged oftentimes, and not because they hate school or they hate learning, but because they hate sometimes the way they have to learn, the way that they're told they have to learn. They hate the perfectionism that is deeply embedded within the system that we have, right? They don't hate education. They don't hate learning, because when they need to learn how to make the new cheat code on the game, they gonna watch the YouTube video. They gonna watch the hour stream. So then we can't tell them that they hate learning, because that's not true. We need to live in truth. And the truth is young people love to learn, but they love to learn in ways that are engaging. They love to learn that when the end of it, there is something that they feel like there's some gratification that they're going to receive from it. And I really do think that when we tap into the things that young people love, even when we have to teach them things that they don't, they start to unpeel a little bit. And there's a little bit more trust for the education system. There's a little bit less of, why do I even need to learn this? And a little bit more of, I understand how I can use the skills that I might have to use to write this essay in all of these different facets of the life that I've dreamt up for myself. So if any of that sounds good to you, I hope that you stick around, listen to the rest of the episode. But more than that, go back, listen to the old episodes, hit up Amazon and order you a I'm Just a Teacher, I'm Just a Student guided journal, and stay tapped in with Black on Black Education. So if you are not connected to our newsletter, please make sure that you reach out, that you do that. That's extraordinarily important. If you are not following us on Instagram at Black on Black Ed, like, I haven't been posting on there, so I understand why you haven't been following us, but now you should be, right? Because the podcast is back and we're about to be better and it's about to be great and I'm excited about it. And better doesn't always mean more, right? So these episodes might not be the longest thing that I've ever done. We might not have interviews every single week. And I think that that's okay, because I really do think that I have found an understanding within myself that I do have an area of expertise. No, I'm not a 17-year veteran in education. No, I'm not any of that. But I do know how to become your kid's favorite teacher. I do know how to build relationships with students. And I sure as heck know how to shift my practice, let go of my ego sometimes. I'm still working on it, like we all are, and be able to recognize and engage and reflect and change and shift and realize that there is always an opportunity to start over. And I had to start over with my class this past school year 25 times, 30 times, 40 times, 50 times, because we said we was going to be quiet and we was going to do the 7-second laugh rule and we was going to live into our norms. And then we didn't, myself included. And so we got to start over again and again. And so that's the goal with Black on Black Education, is that it's going to be an attempt at continuing trying, because I have an area of expertise in the classroom, but this whole getting the camera out and talking to y'all, child, it's hard. I'm scared. Okay. But we are going to do it anyway. We're going to do it scared. We're going to let our voice shake, and we're still going to let our voice be heard, because we have to show our students what that looks like. Oh, you see how I brought that around? Period. All right. So I can even feel the comfort that has happened between like recording and starting this. And now I'm like really getting in my bag, talking to y'all, like being myself. Like I tried to be in my classroom as well. So I give my students permission to be themselves as well. And I'm proud of myself for that. So we gave a recap of Black on Black Education and what it is and where it comes from and why it is so important to be in your headphones or on your way to your car, or listening or watching this podcast on YouTube while you eating your lunch, or however you get it in is how you get it in. And that is why I want to make sure that these episodes are not too long, so that you can really plug in and download some great information that can help. Again, the more information you put in your head about how you can serve your young people, it's going to pop up in those moments that are hard. The more that you are absorbing and thinking about student-centered practice and how you can take yourself out of it and you can bring your kids to the forefront. I'm telling you, in the beginning of the school year, it's a lot. You got to keep reminding them and doing the things over and over again. But then when you get to a place when they can write a whole rubric and you don't got to do it, and then when you get to the place where them kids is making the description for the project as a part of the project, oof. And then when they can evaluate each other using the rubric that they developed, and all of a sudden you putting in grades and it took you 25 minutes because the students graded themselves and you just did the quality check. Oh, so again, sometimes it feels like building and bringing these mindsets and practices into the work means more work. But I have found that I do a lot less. I have a video on YouTube. Not YouTube. I have a video on Instagram, and I will put it in the show notes, so please check those out, where I am literally sitting in a classroom with my feet up, and there is not one student in that classroom disengaged. Not one. Everybody knew what they were supposed to be doing. Everybody knew how they were going to contribute to the overall success of the debate at the end of that assignment. And I was at the point where, like, listen, I did my job. I told y'all what a debate was. I told you the parts. I told you how to be ready, right? They didn't need to write on a worksheet or bring out a packet or do a Word document. No, put it on the wall chart paper, write it up. Yep, that'll be the grade for how you prepared for your debate. Listen, because at the end of the day, I want my young people to be able to do the work, have the skill. I don't need them to show it to me in 750 different ways. We wrote an essay last unit. Let's do it a little different this time. Because again, when we work with them, we show them that we see them. They show up for us. And I, for one, love it when I can see the fruits of my labor of me showing up for a kid come back tenfold. When you're not having a great day and you come in the morning, your head's low and your head's down, and you see a young person come up to you and say, hey, your locks look good today, miss. You don't look like you yourself today, but I love you. What do you need? You need me to get these kids in line? What you need me to do? There's no feeling like that. And I know so many of us as incredible educators that are listening to this podcast, because it takes somebody with some guts to click on a Black on Black education podcast. Because the amount of, I was going through the job interview process, the questions, the side eyes about Black on Black, what is, right? I've even contemplated, do I change? No, we're going to be radically blackity black black. If you listen to this on YouTube, you seeing all the facial expressions. Yeah, we gonna be radically black black black, right? Because Black and brown people, we have a collectivist nature, a tradition of Black on Black education, a tradition of using the information that we know and passing it on to the generations to come. That is what we do. That is what we've done historically. And we have evidence after evidence after evidence after evidence to show that. And so it's just, I'm so grateful. And I talk more about that in the documentary, which I will also put in the show notes. So I put a lot of information on here for y'all to write down. If you're in your car, do not worry. In the show notes, you'll have my email to reach out to me if you want to learn more about the Student Action Board. You'll have our website if you just want to go and play around on there. Links to the podcast will be linked for you to go back and look at other episodes. Yeah, so we're going to continue to interact. Once this conversation is over, there are still so many different options and opportunities for you to kind of tap in and interact and engage with us. What's next? Or as we enter, I'm looking at my notes, y'all. Give me a second. I'm sorry. Yeah, so we did a little recap of the things that we talked about. We talked about student-centered learning. We talked about why it's so important specifically for people of color, and I want to dig into that just a little bit more. I think that the reason why the organization is called Black on Black Education started with just it being a powerful sentiment, period, and it being a truer sentiment than Black on Black crime. And I'm going to stand 10 toes down on that, and I will go tit for tat with anybody who wants to fight me on that, right? Black on Black crime is a reflection of the reality that you are more likely to be victimized of any crime by someone who looks like you than you are by someone that does not. If somebody's going to rob your house, it is oftentimes by someone who looks like you. Why? Because we live in a segregated nation. So these are the sorts of things that people don't want to talk about to have it because Black on Black crime just sounds so good. Well, no, Black on Black education sounds better, right? Because if a enslaved person learned how to read and they needed to be by candlelight in the middle of the woods somewhere hiding out to be able to show that to somebody else, they did that when and if it was possible, as a radical and revolutionary step to ensure that there was always a tradition of learning, right? When the North during Reconstruction came down and said, we're going to have to fix everything for these people. We're going to have to come and give them education. We're going to have to help them, right? And they came in and they said, wait, hold on. Why y'all got this set up already? What? And if you want more information on that or want to teach more about Reconstruction as just such a powerful period in history that just gets overlooked far too much, Facing History has an incredible unit that really breaks down. I learned so much from it that I didn't know about Reconstruction, and I got to do that with my students, which was really, really incredible. Another awesome resource to think about how, again, there is such a line between slavery and the ways that slavery was unraveled and all of the years after that and some of the things that we are currently dealing with in our country and in our world. Listen, y'all, you could, if you have not watched the 1619 Project documentary on Hulu, I'm not sure what you've been doing, but you need to get yourself on there. Okay. So good, so good, so good, so good. I learned so much. I got to continue to expand. Another awesome resource for, again, understanding Black history as such an integral part of understanding and being able to support our Black and brown children. Because if they don't know their history, they get to decide, they get to listen to the TikToks and the videos and the people who are telling them that that history doesn't matter. Right. So we have to show them differently. Crash Course. I believe it's Clint Smith that they brought on to the Black history version. really incredible resources for students brought down to a level that makes it very clear, visually appealing, beautiful things. So we've got some resources there just to talk about history, and I'm bouncing around a lot. But all of those things come back to having a conversation about student-centered practices specifically for people of color, for Black and brown students, the focus of this organization. It's important for us to understand that there are so many ways in which Black and brown children are taught to be controlled. There are also so many ways in which Black and brown children have been stifled in terms of their creativity. Nope, that's not what you're supposed to do in the classroom. You're supposed to sit down, be quiet. Okay, but when I'm dancing in the back of the room, that's what helps me process and use my brain. That's what helps me kind of move around. Why can companies like Google recognize that it's important for people to be able to learn and engage and interact with their work in ways that are important, but in the classes for Black and brown children that's not possible? They're actually taught to conform, to sit down, to be quiet, which ways that don't naturally come to us when we go back to those historical resources I just talk about and talk about all the ways that we have found ways to be resilient through movement, through music, through art, right? And how those things are often sucked and pulled out of the schools that serve our Black and brown kids, right? This is all connected. And so the reason why I continue to talk about student-centered practice is because it's going to connect on one side. The theory tells us that Black and brown children are stifled creatively in the classroom. They're not given the opportunity oftentimes. Again, that's not us doing that. That's people out there doing that. We know that to be true. We don't have enough academic educators. Thank you, Dr. Chris Emden, right? We don't have enough educators that can stand in their own creativity, their own power, and say, hey, yeah, Black and brown children, let's do this as well. And so that's the point of student-centered practice, is for us to take a second to breathe, because sometimes it is frustrating the kid that doesn't want to draw the entire period, or it's frustrating to watch the kid bounce across the back of the room while you trying to teach and you getting distracted. I hear you, and I'm there, and I be making deals like I don't know what. Okay, you can walk in the back. You could get 6 passes while everybody's doing independent work. You can't do it while I'm talking. I'm going to get distracted. So can we make a compromise here, babe? Yes. Okay, cool. Perfect. I gave my little 4-minute lecture. Y'all did some work. I did my next 4 minutes. All right, while I'm doing my 4 minutes, you sit down. But then you can move or go take a walk or do right? It's about how can we make compromises together, because again, I'm trying to earn your respect. I'm trying to see you as a full human. And that is the crux and belief system about student-centered learning. How do I get students to be at the center of the learning that is happening and allow for me to be there at the peripheral as a support system for them? Yes, there is so much for me to teach them and so much they can learn from me, and vice versa. And the sooner that we realize that we can learn so much from them, because they are the experts in themselves. They know themselves better than anybody else. And so, yes, we get the cliche, oh, I'm your mama, I know more than you. When we give our students the tools to explore themselves, they begin to better understand themselves, which then puts them in the best possible position to be student-centered learners in a student-centered classroom. And that's the goal of this organization, is to help as many educators as possible, particularly those that serve Black and brown children, in being able to build the mindset for within themselves of review, reflection, growth, make mistakes, go forward, do the things, put them in the position to feel that, for them to know and to understand, hey, yeah, I can do this. I got this. I've got my head on straight, right? And the more that I understand about myself, and the more that I feel like I can see the vision of what I want for my life, and I can see the vision of what I want for my family and for my community, right? It just keeps getting bigger and bigger, what we believe we can do when we understand ourselves, when we know what we have to offer in the world. And that's a huge goal of Black and Black education, is to have more and more Black and brown children feel that, see that, know that, right? So that's the work, y'all. That's the work. Let's keep it going. And so we are at about 23 minutes. My hope is for these episodes coming back not to be this long on a consistent basis. It might just be me in my car or jumping on this mic for 15 minutes to really download something that I've experienced in the classroom, or talk about something that's come up for me that I want to help kind of us collectively process through. And yeah, so and I think that we've got our people in the South who are already going back, which is scary to me, but I know y'all have been out for longer, so it evens out. But I'm so glad I still got 3.5 weeks left of this summer break. I can't wait to continue to enjoy them. And I'm so excited for y'all going back to the classroom, who are refreshed and renewed and have used the summer to get yourself right. And if you haven't, again, what do we say? We always get to start over. We always get to get better self-care practices. We always get to show up better for ourselves. And so, yes, there's been a lot of bouncing around in this episode, but that's because I have so much on my heart and so much that I want to say, because it's been way too long since I saw y'all. It's been way too long since we vibed out together. And so, yes, let's go into the last little tidbit. And the last little tidbit that I wanted to get into for this episode is just a mindset shift or a thought or an intention for each of us to go into the next school year with. And for me, my intention in being a better student-centered educator, because again, I'm out here supporting people doing it, but I have to walk the walk. I have to talk the talk. There's so many times in the last 4 years as a teacher that I have just completely and 1000% failed at that. And that doesn't mean that I don't get to, again, start over. And so the process for this year is going to be reflect, learn, make mistakes again, because it's going to happen. Try things new, try new things, do something different. Let the craziness happen sometimes and see what happens on the other side of the craziness. Make those mistakes, reflect on those mistakes, learn, do it again. And so my repeat to myself and to everybody else is listen here. Listen here. We are never going to be perfect. Our classroom is never going to be amazing, whether you're the type A, type B, type C teacher, on TikTok, I don't know. No matter what of those things that you are, the energy that you come into the classroom with is always going to be the most powerful part of your practice. Whether your school has the iPads, whether your school has the computer, whether they still doing paper and pencil, like all of those mechanics of how we get to where we want to go, those things are so much less important. And that is when we allow for the resources our school to have. Again, I am not going to pretend like those things do not make this work harder. It does. But when we reframe and reshift what genuinely matters, I don't remember where I heard this from. I probably on an Instagram reel, because I am addicted to social media. And I took a break and came back, and I'm just as addicted as I was before. So here we are. But I think I saw on a reel where someone said, if it doesn't matter in 5 years, how do you get yourself to recognize that as soon as possible? So it's not saying, hey, don't feel your feelings when a friend betrays you, or somebody says they're going to show up for you and do what they needed to do for you, or your school leader said they were going to do this. Yes, we are right. We're absolutely correct that there are so many ways and so many things out there that are really set up for us to not do well. But in 5 years, in 10 years, especially for my high school educators, where these kids are going to be out in the world, what's genuinely going to matter for them? How they treat people, how they learn from their mistakes, how they reflect, learn, and grow from those mistakes, their fearlessness to make mistakes so that they can get to the success that they're looking for, their letting go of perfectionism, their belief system in their community, the communities that they build and cultivate within themselves. Those are the things that are going to matter, right? Their ability to use technology to support them, their excitement for what their life can look like, their ability to visualize what they want to see in the future. Those are the things that are going to genuinely matter in 5 years. And so if at the end of the day, when you're building relationships with your kids and you're seeing the work that they're doing and they're producing, maybe they don't hit every standard, maybe they don't, yes, but that's the perfectionism in us and the perfectionism in the system saying that that's what they need to do to be successful. And I would venture to say that each child has a different idea of what is going to make them successful. And so we need to, one, help them build and develop ideas around what success is, regardless of money, regardless of production. What is it that they want to feel in the world? And those are conversations that we can embed in our classroom, no matter what content we teach, that we can make time for, whether it's 10 minutes a week, 5 minutes a class period, 3 minutes a class period, to bring the humanity back into education. We're not going to go into the school year and throw up every workbook and not practice for the state exam and not that's just not realistic, unfortunately. But there are the many ways, and what is in our locus of control is how we make our students feel, how we grow from our mistakes, and how hard we're trying to get students to critically think, to problem solve, to think about their community, to think about themselves, to advocate for themselves. Those are the skills that they're going to need to be successful in the world. And if you can see growth in that over the course of the school year with your kids, you are just chef's kiss, student-centered educator. Come on now. I appreciate you because I know how important it is for our young people to get those skills. And I can remember going through my education process and I killed it. especially in college. I was like, in high school. But in college, listen, 3.98 GPA, A's. Professor, tell me what I got to do. Go to the office hours, have them read it so it could be perfect. And there's a lot to be learned from that in this current trajectory of my life. But more than that, this early 20s period has been all about either you are in control of how you react to your emotions and to what's going on around you. You get to decide whether this is going to ruin your life. You get to decide whether this is going to make today a bad day or whether this can be a bad 30 minutes. You get to decide those things. And if I had that toolkit earlier, I'd be rolling in the millions now. But it's coming. You learn, you grow, you make the mistakes, you learn, you grow, and so on. And so on. And so that was another episode of the Black on Black Education podcast. That is what I have for you today. First, we talked about who I am, why I'm here, how excited I am for you all to be a part of the Black on Black Education family, the excitement that I have for you to go and be a student-centered educator, the importance of us thinking specifically about student-centered education for our young people of color, and how important it is for them to feel the freedom and creativity to learn and to grow. Why and how we do this work at Black on Black Education and ways that you can work with us, which I'm super excited about. So I can't wait to hear from you all. Make sure that you check out the show notes before you get out of here so that you know how to connect with me, so that you know what we can do together, how I can support you, where you can find the guided journal for you as a teacher if that's where you want to start, and how you can order them for your students as well. And my mindset shift, or my intention for the next school year, I wanted to share that with you all and see if you wanted to come on that journey with me. So the goal for our next episode is to talk about teacher-centered leadership. I don't want to perpetuate this like chasm between teachers and school leadership in that conversation. So I got to really get myself right to talk from a place of healing, and not from a place of victimization, because Lord, can school leadership do a number on you? But that is the goal for our next conversation. So I'm super excited about that. I can't wait to see y'all listening in your headphones, listening at the gym, listening during your lunch break, because you love me and I love you, and we're going to make this education exactly what it needs to be. So thank you for being a part of this conversation with me. I am so excited to talk to you again soon. And if you forgot, my name is Eva Loren Jean Charles, co-founder of Black on Black Education, and I will see you next time.